Good evening, everyone. Time is 7:02 p.m. Announced that a quorum is present. Call to order this City Council regular meeting. Everyone, please stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Invocation is going to be led by Councilwoman Deja Hill.
Thank you. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for giving everyone traveling grace to our council meeting tonight. Thank you for the residents, leaders, and employees throughout the city of Manor. Humble and guide us through our council meeting this evening. Give us wisdom as we discuss tonight's agenda and selflessly make decisions on the betterment of our city residents. Continue to lead, guide, and protect everyone in the city of Manor. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, you may be seated. Public comments. Non-agenda item public comments on the white card, and agenda item public comments on a yellow card. For the white card, comments will be taken from the audience on non-agenda item related topics for a length of time not to exceed 3 minutes. And then on the yellow card, comments will be taken from audience on non-agenda items and agenda items for a combined total of 5 minutes, not to exceed 5 minutes total per person on all items. Except for public hearings, comments on public hearing must be made when the item comes before council and not exceed 2 minutes per person. No action or discussion may be taken by city council during public comments or non-agenda items. To address city council, please complete the white card or yellow card presented to the city secretary or designee prior to the meeting. Okay, we'll start with Mr. Robert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name's Robert Battle. Last Friday I filed a police report to try to stop the desecration of the cemetery area. I'm speaking of an area just to the west of the cemetery that had been a trash pile for about 10 years. And I'm really kind of surprised upon reflection that we didn't really think about this earlier. And that is, we're building next to a cemetery, and we never really vetted the ground to make sure there's no graves there. Now, as we've researched this, Wayne Schneider has done some very good historic work and has found a deed from 1906 for the Martin McVeigh lot that was purchased there. And it says right there plainly, cemetery lot. Cemetery lot. Now, the detective Struble, basically couldn't figure out that there may have been graves there. He saw the deed. He saw this picture I'm going to show you right now. When you see a picture of lilies densely packed like this in a rectangle, that's a black person's grave there. So I'm not sure why the detective was unable to figure out there's a cemetery there. This is Dan Scarborough taking that picture. It's like a third of the way from the south end. And basically, the police department has no opinion on this subject. And it's kind of sending it back to Scott Dunlap, who is actually the person who I think cleaned up that area. And when you're talking about a cemetery, you don't go in there with a bulldozer, folks. That's called desecration. There could be headstones at ground level. Sometimes these are stones that are just scratched in there from the 1800s. So this needs to have a ground penetrating radar done to the entire area before any building is allowed to go there. I think we need to do some ground penetrating radar at the homestead as well. I bet they had a little cemetery over there. I'm talking about James Manor's homestead behind the Lions Club. That's a sacred site. We need to protect about 2.5 acres there as well. So I guess what I have to do is I have to say, hey, I don't believe this Struble's report, and ask the Lieutenant Detective Allen to take a look at it. And then when he shines on about it, then we'll go to Travis County, and I think we'll get something done, okay? This is your chance to stand up for your history. This is the Martin McVeigh. It's a new cemetery. I think it needs to go all the way to the south end of that property and 300 feet to the west of that fence. It'd just be a sacred area. But we won't know that until we do the ground penetrating radar. And just briefly on the Shadow Glen planned unit, and I'll talk more when it comes up for public hearing, but this is Cottonwood Holdings Limited. These are the people that like basically couldn't even put a trail in for like 20 years. We've actually had that park, and you'll see the drawing here in a minute, I guess. That's a rendering from like 2005. That's before there was a Woodlands Park even. That now is a Woodlands Park. It has a 1 mile nature trail there. Those people should have been put in probably 4 miles of hiking trail by now, and should be real generous about parking access for all the people that gave them this property that created Shadow Glen. So now we're talking about retail there. And just I'll mention one more thing. If a commercial lot is over 10 acres, we are required to put a plaza in there. These are 2 parcels and they're both over 10 acres, which means we should have 2 plazas. Now they have one, it looks like a little reflecting pool or something inside that giant U-shaped retail / office building. I guess these are office buildings. 600 parking places. 1 entrance. 600 parking places, 1 entrance. And these people call themselves experts, okay? So I'll talk more when the item comes up for hearing. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. All right, let's see. Next, we'll have Gonzalo Camacho.
Yes. Good evening. Thank you for having. My name is Gonzalo Camacho. I'm a traffic transportation engineer, 30 years experience, 20 in Houston, about 13 in Austin. I've been working on some developments, traffic impact analysis on Palmer over the years, and I realized that Palmer maybe should have a rail in the middle of the median. So I requested a meeting with TxDOT back in August with the district engineer to request for them to consider looking at putting rail along some of these corridors because they're ideal for rail. But I had to do my homework first, and I found out that Palmer Lane, along with 130 going south, is a unique corridor because you have Apple, you have Dell, you have Samsung, Tesla, and Tech Ridge. But not only that, it goes out to the airport. And at the airport, we also have the Formula One. I don't think there's a corridor like that in the world. But also looking to the east, I was looking at FM 973 is under planning. This is also another corridor that could have that vision of having a rail in the middle. And then I'd have to look a little farther east because the green line goes all the way to Elgin. And you have State Highway 95, which already has a rail. And it's quite fascinating because since Taylor has the Samsung plant that's projected to have over 30,000 employees, that's having a huge impact in the region. So it makes sense to have this vision towards the corridors, which on the south is the green line. Then you have 3 corridors, parallel corridors that go to the north. And Taylor has the Amtrak corridor, which goes the commuter rail, well, national rail that goes from Austin, Taylor, Fort Worth to Chicago. Anyway, it's interesting because the district engineer told me, well, there's nothing I can do. You have to go to Camp Metro. So it turns out that we need a change policy in TxDOT. So I plan to speak at TxDOT Commission next week to request for them to start changing the policy so TxDOT can start looking at this. And also I will ask TxDOT to maybe look at the green line because with the big construction downtown with I-35, the green line would have been an incredible asset to relieve some of these 290 highway corridors. But we'll see what happens. But I'm going to add another item to the conversation with TxDOT because over the 30 years that I've worked with TxDOT, are an amazing bunch of people. They're very proactive about things, and I'm going to ask them to do a museum, a cultural arts center, a museum for Texas Transportation Museum, and hopefully they're located in Central Texas, somewhere in Austin. I just wanted to come here to give you this feedback, and I'm gonna send you an email on the map that I put together as some of the visions of having a rail in a median instead of a future 290 or I-35. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. See, next we have is it Melissa Quintella? No? Did I say that right? Quintella? Okay. Oh, okay.
Should I
Uh,
wait? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then it's just the three? Okay. Frank Hutchinson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me. My name is Frank Hutchinson, and I'm one of the owners of Shadow Glen Golf Club. And I've been a little confused and straighten out some of it, I guess, but confused about the hearings so far that had specifically the P&Z, where there's this reference to the multi, without talking about it directly, talking about an amendment for the area that everybody's referring to as the multifamily that have the rendering with apartments. And that area, and my history goes way back. I first got started out here in '98, found the property, worked with Dwyer to get things going. And but the property that's in question, that's being talked about in all these various ways, that it's always been zoned for resort conference center. And specifically, I'm passionate about that is because that was one of the keys to both myself coming out here and developing the golf course. I needed a hotel. There wasn't anything out here, in terms of density of people. And obviously, if you've lived here for a while, you all know that. And the city of Manor wanted me to be the kind of the bad guy and run the traps of also including a conference center, which was a great idea. Don't get me wrong. I'm not critical of that at all. And so all these years, it's been zoned as a resort and conference center until I get these notices and start hearing that there's talking about an amendment back to 1996. And then now this whole argument, or not argument, but suggestion that you have to go back to 1996 to understand what's going on out here. And the fact of the matter is I'm here standing with 2001 PUD agreement and all the documents and the development, the Shadow Glen development documents that go with that. Now I've had them all these years from back in actually when the first was starting getting generated in 1999. The reason I obviously have them is because of my development relationship, and that piece of property shares a common boundary, property line with me. And this whole idea now that somebody, I'm not sure who it is, but that somebody can suggest that we can just go back to 1996 to fix this problem, the problem that I don't know exists, but it's not clear when you look at what you all have put out, or staff has put out, I guess. And the best use of that property still remains to me the resort and conference center. And I was excited when I first met Mr. Moore for the first time. He was still you know, a huge advocate for it. And so it came as a complete surprise to me that somehow we're going to go back to 1996. That has no bearing whatsoever in this. You can't pick when you do these PUDs. You can't pick what year you want to go back to if there's revisions that to say this is the year we want to solve, whatever the problem is. And so I'm trying to kind of be concise, but also I'm talking about something that I don't even understand the kind of the genesis of some of the argument, other than to say is it seems like to me that there's kind of a clever way of trying to talk about that property without talking about it as multifamily. It's never been zoned multifamily. There is an argument I will argue with you from 1996. That drawing that I call it a child's design was from 1996. To me, there isn't any real indication that idea of multifamily stretched all the way up there behind McDonald's, like some people are suggesting. So the idea that even because apparently the city doesn't have the documents that I have here that govern all of this, is the idea of fixing the problem to go back to 1996 just again doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and spent a lot of time and the zoning, the P&Z was shut down, had staff there at it, and was shut down because it was being referenced in 4 separate occasions, and that is that P&Z was not there to change anything. Well, certainly it was, because of reference in 96. So without going on any further, I don't know what I've never been on this side of it where to actually have documents to hand off. And I know that nobody can apparently talk to me, so I'll just leave it on the desk and we'll go from there. Thank you for your time.
No, thank you, sir. Let's see. Kirk Lehman? Lohman? Sorry about that.
I'm Kirk Lohman. I manage Shadow Glen Golf Club, so I'm there day to day handling the operations. Kind of want to run along with what Frank just mentioned, and I was there at the original Planning and Zoning Committee on August 9th, and the only thing anyone ever heard that day was nothing has changed since 1996, and everybody, even the committee there, was very concerned and confused on why this item came up, and there was no exhibits, no information on what was changing, what they were trying to match up to the development agreement. And so the city attorney mentioned, hey, nothing's changed, just go ahead and send it to council. And that's essentially what happened, without any information on what was actually going on. So we had to do a bunch of research on what actually happened or what didn't happen. And that's when we found, the 2001 documents that do not show it as multifamily. They show it as resort conference, which is RC1. But now we're seeing on the diagram as W13B. And there was a couple residents and even a couple members of the P&Z committee that were concerned with the potential of apartments coming to that location behind McDonald's. Traffic is already a huge problem, so they were very concerned. But, the city attorney basically said, hey, there's nothing you can do. This is already set in stone. It's just a clerical error that we're trying to fix. And so, the Shadow Glen neighborhood, the residents weren't notified. The documents and exhibits that are in the current packet show that the neighborhood is not in the PUD. The neighborhood is in the PUD. So legally, they should have been notified that, there is zoning changes. And that wasn't done. So the last thing, the applicant said that there was no plans to develop the area behind McDonald's. We flash forward to today, and now we got a nice drawing of an apartment complex with a small sliver of retail in there. Like Robert mentioned, there's about 600 parking spots. I don't know if any of you have driven through that intersection on 290 in Lexington, but there's only about 3 or 4 cars that get through each light. It's already backed up to Casa Garcia almost every single day. You can't get in and out of the neighborhood. It's a safety hazard, and so it's going to be a even more infrastructure issues that already exist if you go forward with having an apartment complex there. So, I think the Shadow Glen neighborhood should be notified properly of what's potentially going in there or what they're attempting to put in there. And so I just feel like the Planning and Zoning Committee should be able to do their due diligence and have a correct public hearing on the P&Z side. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Okay, and Mr. Jim Terry.
Hello, how are y'all? My name is Jim Terry, and I am a proud resident of Manor, but I live in the Shadow Glen community. I frequent the golf course every day. I think at the beginning, Ms. Hill in her invocation talked about the wisdom to make Manor a better place and good choices about our city going forward. Part of that would come into having the foresight to consider at some point that Shadow Glen, the development, the subdivision will likely be annexed into the city of Manor at some point in the future. This apartment complex in that area with the amount of congestion, traffic, we see it every day back in the subdivision itself with the amount of people cutting through from 973 to get to 290. They're speeding 60 miles an hour. The city thankfully put in some speed bumps to help that. And then we saw they would go around them. And then y'all put in the other things and somebody tore those down recently. I mean, it's just, there's a Facebook group of Shadow Glen homeowners that they talk about these things, and they're concerned. They're concerned with the amount of traffic coming through and cutting through. They're concerned being able to get out of the neighborhood. Hill Lane has been a great help. Thank you for that. But it hasn't alleviated the problem. We still have getting up to the Lexington light. And then if you cut through the little short, I forget, what is that, like Manor Downs Road, I think it is, right? The little short one. And then going over to the Greg Manor Road. And all of those are now filling up. And more people have learned they're still cutting through Shadow Glen. They're still speeding, trying to get to work, and I get that, but there's kids, dogs, people walking, running, walking in this beautiful neighborhood, and it's just going. So as we think about changing or putting in an apartment complex with all these extra spots, taking into consideration of the ramifications of that into the future, the traffic congestion, livability, the perception of what the city of Manor wants to be. I mean, I'm proud to live here. And do we want people who have a stake, that live here and have a stake in what's going on in this city, or people that come rent apartments and are just passing through? And I think that's something to take into consideration as we go forward into what the city of Manor will be in the future. So hope you take that into consideration when you think about those amendments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. We're going to have a program change real fast. City Council would now go into now convene into executive session pursuant to the provisions of Chapter 551 Texas Government Code in accordance with the authority contained in Section 551.071 and 551.072 Texas Government Code and Section 1.05 Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct to consult with legal counsel and deliberate on the purchase of real property.
I thought I was signed up for public hearing item number 1. Did I not sign up for that?
They're in an executive session.
Before finishing that one item? Oh, I see.
City Council will now reconvene into open session pursuant to provisions of Chapter 551 Texas Government Code and take action, if any, on items discussed during closed executive session. I'm going to ask you that you all bear with us because we need to go back in. One more time, this particular time, we need to convene into executive session pursuant to provisions of Chapter 551 Texas Government Code in accordance with the authority contained in sections 551.071, 551.072 Texas Government Texas Government Code Section 1.05 Texas Disciplinary Rules and Professional Conduct to consult with legal counsel regarding the Shadow Glen planned unit development. Item number 9. 8:30. City Council will now reconvene into open session pursuant to the provisions of Chapter 551 Texas Government Code. Take action, if any, on items discussed during closed executive session. At this time, we're going to pull item public hearing number 1, conduct a public hearing on ordinance amending the Shadow Glen PUD unit and being located at the intersections of Lexington Street and US Highway 290, as well as Shadow Glen Boulevard and US Highway 290. And we're going to also pull item number 9, which is the first reading of what I just read regarding the public hearing, and direct staff to have the certain conversations and discussions that we talked about in closed executive session. Moving on to the consent agenda, all the following items on the consent agenda are considered to be self-explanatory by the council and will be enacted with one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless requested by the mayor or a council member, in which event the item will be removed from consent agenda and considered separately. Number 2, consideration, discussion, possible action to approve city council minutes, November 15, 2023, city council regular minute, November 20th, 29th, city council special call session, consideration, discussion, and possible action on the purchase agreement with Zalaram LLC for a wastewater easement and with a temporary construction easement for parcel number 3, consideration, discussion, possible action on the purchase agreement with Madtex Drive LLP for a wastewater easement and with a temporary construction easement for parcel number 4. Consideration, discussion, possible action on purchase agreement with Madtex Drive LP for wastewater easement with a temporary construction easement. Parcel number 5. Consideration, discussion. Number 6. Consideration, discussion, and possible action on the purchase agreement with EastJet Drive LP for a wastewater easement with a temporary construction easement for parcel number 6. Is there a motion on the floor?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as read.
We have a motion on the floor by Councilwoman Mesquite. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Weir. Any questions to the motion? Any questions to the motion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Number 7, regular agenda item. Consideration, discussion, and possible action on ordinance of the City of Manor, Texas, repealing ordinance number 119-A and any amendments thereto, and all juvenile curfew offenses listed in Chapter 8, offenses and nuisances, Article 8.02, minors, Division 2, curfew. Yes, sir. How you doing?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Legislative session last go around removed our ability to have daytime and nighttime curfew, and this is ordinance that we are recommending to change to be in compliance with that legislation.
Any questions regarding that?
Were there any cases that were pending?
Yeah, pending cases, cases that were filed before the legislation went into effect would still go through the court process. The prosecutor could make the determination to dismiss those cases, but I have not heard that that was the case in the pending cases that we have.
Other comments or questions?
Mayor and Council, I'd like to make a motion that we approve ordinance number 728 to repeal the City of Manor's juvenile curfew ordinances.
A motion on the floor by Councilwoman Wallace. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Councilwoman Mesquite. Any questions to the motion? Any questions to the motion? Just a comment on that. Years ago, a lot of counties and entities were kind of just working towards school to prison pipeline and trying to lessen legislation or laws in regards to things that put kids into the juvenile system at early young ages. And so for a long time, students would get picked up and they just get dropped back off, picked up and dropped back off at school. And
right.
I don't know, there was some data we saw that showed like 33% of public transportation in our area was kids using public transportation throughout the school day. And so the idea of, the current law didn't have any teeth anyway, is what I'm getting at. And so it's going to be interesting to see, you know, to figure out where we're going with this in regards to our youth. And it's going to be very important that we have safe places for them and keep them engaged when there's no more teeth in the system, to have them be at school. We require them, but there's no consequence for not being there. It's going to be interesting. Very concerned about that.
Yeah, I will say we have seen definitely an increase of our young people out during the day, and because they know and they talk, and they knew before. You know, I'd show up at Starbucks and you'd see 5 of them tuck out the opposite door I'm walking in. So, but those numbers have increased now, and they know, you know, that we don't do anything about it, or we can't do anything about it anymore. I'm not opposed completely to the law changing. Like you said, you don't want to criminalize everything, but there definitely needs to be an answer, and there definitely needs to be accountability. And unfortunately, you know, it just took that burden off of law enforcement's, you know, shoulders and put it on the school truancy programs. So that's where we're at.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
No other comments? We'll take our vote. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Sir. All right. Moving right along to number 8. Right. All right. Consideration, discussion, possible action on statement of work 27 to complete a service line inventory and submit the results to the Texas Commission of Environmental Quality, TCEQ, before October 16, 2024. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA deadline. Yes, sir. How you doing?
Pretty good. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Justin Klinger, GBA. So I want to give some context. I know it's late, but there's a bigger story on this one. So statement of work number 27 involves the development of a service line inventory that's required of all community, non-transient, non-community public water systems under the lead and copper rule revisions. So the inventory must include all service lines within the distribution system, regardless of ownership. So utility side and customer side. It must be submitted to the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality by October 16th, 2024. So the initial service line inventory must include a good faith effort to perform a records review of any source that could contain information on service line materials, including previous lead and copper rule, sampling locations, construction records and plumbing codes, and water system records. The lead and copper rule revisions amended the lead and copper rule that's been in place since 1991 with the goal of better protecting communities and children from the risks of lead. So the rule will eventually require public water systems to work toward a complete inventory of their service line material and provide annual or triennial updates to the TCEQ based on their current lead and copper sampling schedule. So those inventories will need to be maintained and continuously updated going forward as lines are replaced or added to the system. So the rule also includes new testing protocols, service line replacement requirements, school and child care facility sampling requirements, and an emphasis on empowering communities through information and increased transparency. So several things going on there. The lead and copper rule improvements are yet another revision to the lead and copper rule revisions. And those are currently under development by the EPA and are intended to clarify and further direct on the additional requirements that I just mentioned. So TCEQ has advised public water systems to focus solely on the development of the initial service line inventory at the current time until such time as the LCRI has been fully developed by the EPA and TCEQ has had time to develop their recommendations and their guidance. So with that in mind, we've developed a plan that satisfies the current TCEQ requirements while refraining from the initiation of any other activities currently associated with lead and copper rule revisions until such time as we have that additional guidance. So there will likely need to be a second statement of work to contend with any of the remaining compliance requirements once LCRI has been submitted, but we want to hold off on that until such time as those have been fully developed and digested. So current plan is to develop a GIS database based on the TCQ required service line inventory template and perform a breakage review and spatial queries of available data sets to determine the service line material for service lines within the distribution system or the date of construction for those service lines or for those structures associated with service lines. Given the city's development history, the date of construction will likely allow us to remove a significant portion of those lines from any future investigations, thereby allowing us to develop more targeted and cost-effective strategies for the identification and possible replacement of any remaining service lines in the future. So while no record or institutional knowledge suggests the presence of lead service lines within the water distribution system, the lack of records could require the replacement of galvanized lines that are currently known to exist in certain parts of the system in order to comply with the lead and copper rule revision requirements. So the database developed for the initial service line inventory will not only serve that purpose, but can also be extended through the future of the investigations, and compliance activities act as the single source of truth and allow for increased transparency, more cost-effective updates and decision-making through the development of web and mobile applications for city office staff and field workers. You may remember the council previously approved the completion of a project information form in the May 3rd meeting. I think the packet says May 5th meeting. That's a typo. And that PIF was submitted to the Texas Water Development Board in an effort to secure project funding through the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund lead service line replacement program. So all projects were ranked based on established criteria. However, unfortunately, this project was not selected during the 2023 budget cycle. There were 258 projects submitted, and so it was highly competitive, and only 39 were selected out of those 258. So we do intend to pursue project funding in the 2024 cycle for any of the remaining LCRI compliance tasks, including the potential galvanized service line replacement. And there is also the potential that we could include the current costs in that additional funding request as a retroactive piece. So at this point, city staff is recommending the city council approve the proposed completion of a service line inventory and subsequent submittal to TCQ in an amount not to exceed $35,000 and authorize city manager to sign the statement of work 27 proposal.
On the, you also state that you're, in addition, well, you have this request, but you're going to continue to look for or resubmit. Is that what I read? For another funding source?
Yes, the funding is in place for at least the next 5 years. So we can continue to, submit funding requests until such time as the money is no longer available from the federal government.
Okay. And what was their feedback? Or did they give feedback on our application?
They did not. I spoke to them this morning, Texas Water Development Board. Of the 39, all of those selected, with the exception of 2, were very small communities with populations of less than about 6,000. So they seem to have an emphasis toward targeting, very small communities with particular situations in mind.
Okay. Council members, any questions?
I have a question. You said something what you were going to continue to pursue the funding for
Yes.
the next 5 years, or what is being requested today would cover the next 5 years?
What's being requested today would not cover the next 5 years. What's being requested today is specifically intended to focus on what is required to be submitted by October 16th, 2024, knowing that we're going to get additional clarifications and potential modifications to things that are currently in the lead copper rule revisions that may change. So we don't want to pursue any activities that they may end up either removing or revising, particularly when it comes to investigations, line replacements, those sorts of things.
In short, we're going to get compliant and then make the adjustments afterwards,
Correct.
and then keep applying to that 5-year source of funding for the list of projects we already have pushed forward for you all to do funding for.
Correct.
Okay.
With hopefully the additional data that we collect during this process, making the application more effective.
Basically, the water version of our street project. Right.
Exactly.
Okay, getting the data so that we can make more informed decisions on improvement in quality and
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
Other questions, council members?
For the locations that you said that you would, I guess it would be required for you to go to, like the, you said on both sides, the public side and then like the private or the
Correct.
consumer side, how will they be notified, and I guess even time frame so they would be able to prepare?
There would be notification requirements in place where there would be door hanger methodologies in instituted in there. However, that's one of the pieces that is intended to get clarified under lead and copper rule improvements, is exactly how that's going to take place, because it's the first time that utilities have really been required to pay attention to what's on the customer side. So there's been a lot of pushback from particularly smaller utilities about that. But yeah, notification prior to any entry onto the property or definitely investigation would definitely be part of that process. And could also be monitored and controlled through and tracked through that GIS database that we plan to create.
I'll entertain a motion or more questions.
Mayor Council, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the proposed completion of a service line inventory and the subsequent submittal of the inventory and all associated files to the TCEQ in an amount not to exceed $35,000, and authorize the city manager to sign the statement of work number 27 proposal.
I have a motion on the floor by Councilmember Rangel. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Councilwoman Wallace. Any questions to the motion? Any questions to the motion? Being none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Moving right along, item number 10. Consideration, discussion, and possible action on the resolution finding public convenience and necessity and authorizing the use of eminent domain to condemn, if necessary, 20,796 square feet waterway water easement and a 19,514 square foot acre temporary construction easement, both as described in exhibits A and B and C from that 13.502 acre tract conveyed by warranty deed to Tuan and Nehu Nugan, and recorded as document number 207-2304 of the official public records of Travis County, Texas, for the public use and purpose of construction of a wastewater line. Ms. Veronica.
Mayor, council members, Veronica Rivera, Assistant City Attorney. This item again is being provided to you tonight with a recommendation by your condemnation attorney, Ken Sick. And if you so choose to accept this resolution, the only clarification I ask is in the legal recommendation, it's agenda item 10 instead of agenda item X. If you so choose to make that recommendation, I'm here to answer any questions on this item.
Are there any questions, council members? I'll entertain questions, comments, or motions. I'll entertain questions, comments, or a motion.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
This is a permanent easement or is for the sewer? Is that how I'm reading it wrong?
Yes,
Okay.
we would be using the powers of eminent domain to obtain that easement because there was the property owners were reached out to, but several times, but we were unable to come to an agreement. And so the recommendation again is from the condemnation attorney to go ahead and move forward if needed. We're still trying to see if the property owners will provide the easement, but yes, it would be a permanent easement.
What are the property owners asking for?
I think city manager can provide additional information.
I was going to say our right-of-way agent has been working closely with the appraiser, and so we've done everything, the due diligence that we needed to do to get to this point. All the other properties along this route, we've been able to get, if we had to go to a combination hearing, we were able to do that. And with this family, they weren't able to, I guess, had other representation telling them to wait it out. But this is a critical project because we've received funding from, I think, KB Homes, like $1 million to put in the line. And it was a critical path that, I think we've given ourselves 100 and so many days to get this done. And if we don't get it done, it's going to be other financial situations that's going to impact us with KB Homes going to their next phase of development. We need to make sure this utility line was in place, and we've done our part to really work with each property owner and go back and forth just to make sure everything would meet the intent of the law. And now we're at the point to where we have to go this route just to go make sure we put the utility in that we were obligated to do to make sure the subdivision can be completed as scheduled.
Okay, so are they not asking for anything or they're just waiting it out?
I mean, we've given them their the appraisal. We've given them everything.
So I have information, some additional information, like the city manager mentioned, the right-of-way agent had anticipated that the property owners would agree to a settlement based on the offer that was provided, but then all of a sudden they just went silent, and their attorney was no longer returning calls. So we don't know whether they were asking for anything more than what the settlement amount had been.
Because we were close to, like we indicated, we're negotiating, and then when they stopped, we were running out of time, and so we kept giving them opportunity after opportunity to meet, and when you get no return, we have to go this route.
So basically 90 days of no communication, 90 plus days. Other questions or motion?
I have one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
Just to make sure, is there anything that's on this property now that belongs to the current owners that have to be destroyed or taken away, like any structures or anything, in order to obtain the square footage that you're getting? Or is it going to like destroy whatever they had on their full property?
I am not aware of any. It wasn't mentioned again by the attorney. It's normally close to the right of way. That's where the easement would be requested. And most folks do not have structures right at, right to your fence line or to your property line. But I'm unable to provide you that information for certain. But again, I'm not aware of any.
I was wondering, I would notice with the map, and I wasn't sure if there was anything else there. Okay.
Other questions or motion?
Frank's gonna share some.
I can add some information to answer your question, I think.
Thank you.
Evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
So this wastewater line easement actually was running a little bit closer to the right of way, but to connect to the line, this is kind of the tail end of the line where it's connecting to an existing one. It was actually after initial conversations with the property owner, it was relocated so it runs right along the floodplain now. So it's basically away from the road so that the developable acreage is preserved, and this then runs along a floodplain. So it was relocated to make it less disruptive to the property, but there are no structures of any kind that need to be removed. They're like buildings or anything like that. Yeah. So, does that answer the question?
It does. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right.
Questions or motion?
Mayor Council, I'd like to make a motion. I move that the city of Maynard authorize the use of power of eminent domain to acquire both a permanent wastewater easement of 20,795 square feet and a temporary construction easement of 19,514 square feet from the property owned by Tuan and Neil Gwynn and described in agenda item 10 for the public use of constructing and operating wastewater lines and infrastructure improvements.
We have a motion on the floor by Councilman Moreno. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Councilwoman Mesquite. Any questions to the motion? Any questions to the motion? Being none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Moving right along to item number 11. Consideration, discussion, possible action on the appointment of city council committees. All right, so team, we brought this item up just so in consideration of the changes we've been doing in regards to the tiers and tier 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so for council members to be able to work at the tier 2 level and higher, they have to be able to have a committee to chair. And usually we would be doing this, I believe, at next election, where we'd be selecting new committees, but so that council members have opportunity to work at that level. We wanted to bring the committees up and see if some people want to let go. Some of y'all have 5 committees, some of y'all have 1 or 2, but and some of y'all are chairing a lot. And so we wanted to make sure everyone had an opportunity to chair a committee. And from that, so from my understanding, there's only at least we know, y'all, as y'all recall, we had a special election to fill seat 6, where Councilwoman Deja is, and so we had committees at that time period, and so it's, but she didn't get an opportunity to really come in and chair. So there's an opportunity for us to see if someone wants to give up something. or we're asking that you would give her something so that she can have a committee to chair and take on and do some work. I'm offering capital improvement committee. As mayor, I can actually attend all of those, but I think I chair that one, so I'm offering that one. If anyone else is, or Councilwoman Hill, if you would like to say what you're interested in, and then see, we can go from there. For the record, let me read them all. Budget Committee, Park Improvement District Committee, Public Improvement District Committee, Park Committee, Public Tree Advisory Board, Economic Development Committee, Capital Improvement Committee, Community Collaborative Committee, Healthcare Committee, Emergency Management Committee, and Public Safety Committee. So as she's looking and pondering, if you know you want to give yours up, throw your name in a hat. Capital improvement is out there. That's good. Y'all like y'all committees.
I'm willing to give up chair of Public Safety Committee.
I'm willing to take that back.
Okay. So just make a note of that because we're going to need some motions in a second. Anyone else?
Make that clear. I will stay on the committee. I'm just willing to give the chair position.
Yes, ma'am. I understood what you meant. No, they just swapping. And that what they did didn't help us at all. They just helped them.
Me and Emily are just switching spots. We're both on the committee already. We're just switching spots.
We still have the original. Anyone?
I guess not.
Well,
Thanks.
we're waiting on for you to say what you were interested to.
Well, I didn't want to tear anyone away from anything.
I'm interested, if you're interested, in having my PID chair. If you want.
No, thank you. But I'll accept the chair position for the capital improvement.
Okay, so we need motions on the floor for both opportunities.
Mayor Council, I'd like to make a motion that we remove Mayor Harvey from the from chair of the Capital Improvements Committee, and make Councilwoman Deja Hill the chair of the Capital Improvements Committee. Also that we remove myself, Councilmember Wallace, as the chair of the Public Safety Committee, and make Mayor Pro Tem Emily Hill the chair of the Public Safety Committee.
All right, we have a motion on the floor by Councilwoman Wallace. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Councilwoman Deja Hill. Any questions to the motion? Any questions to the motion? Being none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations. All right. Number 12, consideration, discussion, possible action on the resolution accepting a petition for voluntary annexation of 0.98 acres of land, more or less, being located in Travis County, adjacent and contiguous to the city limits, and providing for open meetings and related matters. Mr. Dunlap.
Evening, Mayor and Council. So this is the approximately 1 acre tract right at the northeast corner of 290 and 973. It should be a fireworks stand that's still there. It's the only remaining parcel of that larger 33-acre tract that was left out of the city, probably because of that fireworks stand. But with the Manor Commons Phase 3, 380 incentive agreement and development agreement, part of that was bringing in that 1 acre into the city to make the whole property contiguous and all within the city limits. And so that is, the developer has made this request now for the annexation. And part of the development agreement, it does speak to that fireworks stand. It does allow them to continue through December 31st of 2024.
Okay. Questions or a motion?
Mayor Council, I'd like to make a motion that we approve resolution number 2023-41, accepting the petition for voluntary annexation of 0.98 acres of land, more or less being located in Travis County, Texas, and adjacent and contiguous to the city limits, and providing for open meetings and other related matters, and set a public hearing for January 3rd, 2024.
All right, we have a motion on the floor by Councilman Moreno. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Councilwoman Wallace. Any questions to the motion? Questions to the motion? Being none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, sir. Moving right along to number 13, acknowledge the resignation of Planning and Zoning Commissioner Lakeisha Small, place 7, and declare a vacancy. Is this where one of those alternates will go in, or no?
No. So she's a ETJ position.
Okay.
So we did put out for applications. And actually, we have 3 of the seats that are coming up for reappointment as well. So our request for applications were for city limits and for that ETJ position for the remainder of that term for chair or seat 7, place 7. So at your next council meeting, you'll have kind of 2 agenda items. One is to appoint for the seats that come up for their expiring terms, or you can reappoint the sitting commissioners, or if we have applications, you can consider your applicants. And then also for filling the unexpired term of place 7, which would be Commissioner Small's vacated seat.
Okay. Is there a motion on the floor?
Mayor Council, Mayor Council, would like to acknowledge the resignation of Planning and Zoning Commissioner Lakeisha Small and declare a vacancy for place 7 effective December 14th, 2023.
We have a motion on the floor by Councilwoman Weir. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Mayor Pro Tem Hill. Any questions to the motion? Any questions to the motion?
I have a question. She's the chair, correct?
Yeah.
So would
They appoint a new chair annually anyways, and that would have been on their January meeting. Maybe, yeah, we usually do it in January.
okay, thank you.
Other questions? So in her letter, it says the 31st. Is she saying final on that day, or is she making reference that her term ends on that day?
That's the day she put. I mean, we're not planning any additional planning commission meetings between our regular meeting on the 13th and the 31st. That's why we put December 14th. She intends to be at our meeting next week. But you can make it effective the 31st, but it's the same outcome.
Well, so in theory, if we had a special call, then she wouldn't be there, right?
Right.
And what date did we do? The 14th?
True.
Say again?
Evie was mentioning we have the alternates now. So
Okay. But you have a plan for the chair?
we do appointments for chair and vice chair at our January meetings because they're only 1 year for that. So every year, our first meeting, we always select a new chair or vice chair.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Being none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Thanks, sir. All right. Consideration, discussion, possible action to close city offices at noon on Friday, December 15th. Tracy.
She's not here, Mayor.
Oh, well, I guess we can't do it then.
Gotta work.
God, you gotta let her know she should have been here. We was waiting on her rationale.
Yeah. But Mayor Council, this request came before you last year, and I think it's back before you to see if we can continue the request this year if you approve it.
Take questions, comments, or motion.
Mayor Council, I'd like to make a motion that we close City Hall offices at noon on Friday, December the 15th,
We have a motion on-
2023.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor by Councilwoman Wallace. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Councilwoman Messmer. Any questions to the motion?
I have a question.
Question by Mayor Pro Tem.
Why are we closing?
The holiday lunch.
Holiday luncheon.
What time is the party?
Apparently it's at noon. It's a lunch. They're closing it so they can have lunch together during the lunch hour.
Meaning no one
So-
can pay their bill
During lunch.
on their payday Friday. Okay. Afternoon sign.
Mayor and council. So normally every year, this HR normally presents this item. It's the employee luncheon. They normally ask for City Hall offices to close for the employee luncheon. It's from 12 to through around 3 or so. It is mandatory. So I know Tracy is very involved on making sure all staff does attend. And then after some police officer, I think the night shift, right? They're not able to. But it's the same request, like every year they've requested for that reason.
So, and then 3 o'clock, then what?
3 o'clock, they go home.
Okay.
They're asking for the closure for the whole day, from noon to close from 12 to 5. Obviously, we have some staff members that do go back to the office because we have stuff to finish up, but customer service windows in the main lobby will be closed.
I have a question. Sorry. My question / concern. I think for me, this is one of the few years that the holiday party, it also lands on the 15th when normally our sewer water is due, and before it's like late. And so I was just wondering if there was any consolation to our residents to turning in or being able to, like, for the ones that can't get to it, but they get to it, but they can't come before 12, maybe because they're working, or they come as close to 5 as possible, or is there something that we have available for them?
I think the extension would be given just like we had on Thanksgiving. We had cut off schedule, and we just waited till Monday and not cut people off during the holiday. And this would be the same if payment are due. They have the drop box, or we'll make sure that no additional payments would be applied if they came in on Monday with the intention that they could have paid on Friday.
Is there a notification that goes out or something that would give a notice of that?
I think they will. They can request it to either blast it on social media, make sure they post it on the door as well. So the residents will be notified in time.
Thank you.
Other questions? No, I'm not asking these other questions. I'm just writing down some notes and follow stuff. I'm asking. Being none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Let's see. This concludes our agenda. Time is 9:16 p.m.